Coming up on Esoteric Atlanta.
Are you saying that all the miracles of the Bible are myths? Remember, this is corrupted information altered after the fact for purposes of political and economic gain and control. That just sums it all up. So they're saying, remember, what you think is the truth is actually manipulated and altered for political and economic gain and control over you.
And before we get into the episode today, I just once again want to extend a huge thank you to all of our patrons and our producers here on Esoteric Atlanta. Without you guys, this work would not be possible. Now, it is Mercury retrograde, and this has happened before. Sometimes during Mercury retrograde, I cannot get the list of the patrons to pull up. Something funny always happens with the website, the Patreon website, over Mercury retrograde. So I apologize for not having the names up, but I thank you guys nonetheless for all of your contributions to this channel. If you would like to help support this channel, there is a link to the Patreon community down in the description box below.
Laura Knight's Cassiopaean experiments, often associated with the Cassiopeia material, involves the exploration of consciousness, spirituality, and the nature of reality. Through various methodologies, including channeling and psychic experiments, Knight and her collaborators sought to communicate with higher intelligences, particularly a group of entities referred to as the Cassoppaeans. The primary aim was to gain insight into the metaphysical questions, the nature of existence, and human development. The experiments included multi-session discussions that cover topics like multidimensional realities, free will, and the influence of higher dimensional beings on humanity. Knight recorded these sessions, which often contained profound philosophical and esoteric insights, and these records became part of a larger body of work that aimed to explore consciousness beyond conventional scientific understanding. The overall tone of the experiments reflect a blend of skepticism and deep inquiry into the nature of consciousness and our place in the universe. Laura Knight began her communication with the Cassoppaeans in 1994. She is still in communication with the Cassoppaeans to this day.
If you would like a better understanding of the Cassoppaeans and their impact on humanity, I would highly suggest checking out the Wave series by Laura Knight, the Cassiopaean Forum, which a link will be provided in the description box below, or purchasing the book that I personally am reading from that contains all of the transcripts and conversations between Laura and the Cassoppaeans.
The Cassoppaeans base the soul's evolution and consciousness on the spiritual template known as the Law of One. The Law of One is also known as the raw material. It is a series of philosophical texts that emerged from a series of channeling sessions conducted by Carla Rucker, Don Elkins, and Jim McCarthy in the early 1980s. The sessions involved channeling a consciousness known as Ra, who claimed to be a collective of extraterrestrial beings from the sixth density. The key concepts in the Law of One are unity and oneness. The central tenet of the Law of One is that all beings are fundamentally interconnected and are expressions of the same universal consciousness. The phrase, "we are all one," encapsulates this idea, emphasizing that unity is the essence of existence. It also covers the densities of existence. The material describes the cosmos as composed of multiple densities or levels of existence. Each density represents a stage of spiritual evolution, with humans currently experiencing a third density, which is characterized by lessons in love, understanding, and most importantly, making choices. We also seek to understand in the law of one soul evolution. According to Ra, souls undergo a process of evolution through these densities, learning and growing through various incarnations. The choice between these paths influences one's spiritual evolution and the experiences one encounters in life. There's also discussions of the role of free will. Free will is considered sacred, and individuals are encouraged to explore and make choices regarding their spiritual development without interference from higher beings.
If you would like more information on the Law of One, please make sure to check out the material for yourself. A link to all resources will be posted down in the description box below. But for now, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Sorry, I was about to half my butt cheek was off my chair there, so I was like, I'm gonna fall off. But welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Of course, my name is Bryce. You guys, this episode today is super, super scandalous and super, super juicy. I almost didn't read this on this particular channeling because I was just like, I don't know if I got it in me to deal with the abuse from specifically from the Christians. But then I was like, you know what? It hasn't stopped me yet. And I think this is really interesting. And I have a lot of points that I would like to discuss, like, and get your feedback on with this particular episode. Because you guys know, if you've been with me for a while, you know that I, not many years ago, like what, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that, started going through the missing books of the Bible. And boy, oh boy, did we go on a roller coaster with that one. So many things came to light about the true story of Jesus, or Yeshua. Jesus was not his name. And of course, for many of us on this journey, including myself, it was a very liberating journey to go on, a very interesting journey to go on. But for some people, it got very triggering. That's when I started to get a lot of unaliving threats from Christians. I had Bishop Larry Gators up in Canada go on his YT channel and claim he was going to fly to Atlanta and like literally take my head off. Like just craziness ensued. Just because I was going through the missing books of the Bible, like just because. And that's what's so wild to me, because when you want the truth, when you're a seeker of the truth, and you understand that so many things in our world have been deliberately changed, manipulated, kept from us, you want to know what the big secret is. And for so many people in the world, this is why it's still so baffling to me. Like so many people, and it just shows you how brainwashed, like how programmed and just deeply brainwashed Christians are. A lot of Christians are. Like how like brilliantly the bad guys like brainwashed people through religion. Like it's unbelievable. And I get it, because we all have a fear of death, right? With the fear of the unknown, the fear of mortality. And so if you can hook people through their fear of death, or through any fear really, then you've got them. Like for me, I don't want to die right now. I quite like this life. I'm having fun in this life. I've had a great life, but I'm not afraid of it. Like you can't scare me with that. I have a really close relationship with God through all of my spiritual journeys, for spending years in India, everything. I've always really been a huge fan of God. And it's never questioned in my mind. I've never questioned the existence of a higher power. I've never questioned it. And I've always felt that from that higher power, it was just supreme, ultimate, unconditional love. No matter what I had done or how I felt about myself, I always felt that peace and serenity from that higher power. And so for me growing up, even though I grew up Presbyterian, I couldn't reconcile with a God that would say he loved people unconditionally, but if they didn't have the right opinion, they were going to go spend eternity burning in hell. Like that never made sense to me. Like that's not the God I know. And that's not unconditional love. So you can't say something is unconditional love, but then give a condition. Yeah. And so going on the journey of the missing books of the Bible was just very, very interesting. And it really did show. And of course, Christianity is what, the biggest religion in the world, if not one of the biggest religions in the world. So of course it's been corrupted. Like, That's just common sense, you know? And just because the religion has been corrupted does not mean that God has been corrupted. Just because the Yahshua story has been corrupted does not mean that Yahshua was corrupted, okay? The story really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters is the person's internal feelings and love of God and communion with God. That's it. That's all that matters, yeah? However, we get so stuck in this illusionary or delusionary world where we think we're our identities, we think we're our bodies, we think that our, somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong. That's very like third density thinking, right? There's a winner, there's a loser. If you hear pounding, that's coming from the construction next door. So I apologize if you guys can hear that. It's driving me crazy. But in reality, there is no winners and losers in spirituality. We're all equal, of equal value, right? Now, with that being said, this reading too, a lot of and I'm going back and forth on, because a lot of what they say even contradicts some of my research. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about, because it seems interesting, and I have some suspicions, because the Cassiopaeans, even though they give us the truth, sometimes they don't give the full story, especially if you're not ready to hear it. They don't give you the full story. Now, with that being said, I agree with that. However, my channel is a research channel where we cover controversial topics and conspiracies. So I'm putting a warning out right now. If you think that you're going to be triggered by this research, we talk about Jesus, his life, his parentage, his non-crucifixion. If that is going to trigger you to the point where you are not going to be able to control your violent tendencies, your aggression, your anger, if it's going to trigger you to the point where you're going to try to curse people, like putting comments telling people they're going to hell, that is literally you cursing people. If it's going to turn you into a person, if watching this video is going to turn you into a person that you don't want to be, then don't watch the video. However, I'm not going to sugarcoat my channel and not put these videos up because it makes you uncomfortable. Because with the Christians, you are a small percentage of people who watch this channel. Most of the people who watch this channel want to hear these things and want to go on this journey. I also want to remind you, human psychology, if you really truly believe what you believe, like really truly believe it, nothing I say or anybody else says is going to affect you. You only get triggered when you don't actually believe what you claim to believe. I know for a fact that there is a higher consciousness, a God. And I know that God loves everyone. I know that it does not matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what country you come from, what sexuality you are, what race you are. It doesn't matter. God created everyone equally and loves everyone equally. I am comfortable with that. So therefore, because I am comfortable with that, I can look at stuff like this. I can challenge my own research. I can look at different perspectives. Because at the end of the day, at the bottom line, in my moral compass, I know that none of it really even matters anyway, because God is love. The point in this research, the point in looking at this is to see where we have been duped. All right? So it's your responsibility. You have to be accountable for your behavior. Nobody else. That is the only thing you can control in this world. Nothing, obviously nothing else you can, they can take your money, they can take your job, they can take everything from you. The one thing they can't take from you is how you behave. And when you come into the comment section and you start threatening and abusing people and cursing people as a Christian, you're not making the religion look that great. And maybe, just maybe, the way you're behaving that way because deep in your soul, you know what you've been told is hogwash. It's not true. Because God is love. Period. End of story. There's no buts. God is unconditional love. God loves the Christian people just as much as he loves the atheists. They're of equal value in God's eyes. Okay? But again, if this is too much, if this is going to trigger you, Now you get your out. You can stop watching. Your feelings are not facts. But repeat after me, everybody. Feelings aren't facts. Feelings aren't facts. Opinions aren't facts. Okay? So with that being said, let's get into it, because for the people who want to stay and look at this with me, who are open-minded and know we've been duped by there's so many different spinning wheels of deception everywhere. Y'all ready to look at this? Because this is juicy. Let me tell you, this is juicy. So this is coming from September. Ooh, I need to clean my glasses. This is coming from September 30th of 1994. Again, we're still in 1994, you guys. We hadn't even moved to 1995 yet. I got a few more I want to look at from 1994 before we go into 1995. So once again, on September the 30th of 1994, how old were you? That's the first question I have. I have people, last time I asked that question, they're like, oh, I wasn't even born yet. So way to make a gal feel old. So 1994, I was 11. I was what? How old are you when you're 11? Fifth grade? Something like that? Fifth grade? No, actually, so September of 1994, I would have been in the sixth grade. What? Because 95, that's when I turned 12. Yeah, and then 12 to 13 would have been the seventh grade, because 1996, the summer of 1996, was when the Olympics were here in Atlanta. That was the summer between my seventh and eighth grade year. And I remember that, like, that sticks into my mind hardcore, because we went to so many events. And I remember that was like right before my eighth grade year. So September of 1994, I was 11 years old, a few months away from turning 12. And I remember being excited about turning 12, because when I was growing up, the age of 12 was when you got to start babysitting. Looking back at that now, that's kind of young. Like my nephew is 12. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I think you could watch a kid for like an hour, but I mean, I remember going in like late nights babysitting at 12, but I don't know if they have the same rules back then. So I remember being very excited about being able to babysit, like coming up to that age of babysitting. So anyway, how old were you? What grade were you in on September 30th of 1994? Now, I am going to give you a little footnote here, just like I did in yesterday's episode, that is from Laura Knight. And she writes this as commentary going back. Obviously, she wrote this commentary because I'm reading from the book. We're going to pull the forum up too. Again, all links to all the books and the forum will be down in the description box below for you to do your own research. And as she went and put these transcripts together to publish a book with them, she gave, looking back, she gave commentary, which is interesting. I think that'd be kind of cool. Maybe I should do that. Go back and watch old videos of mine and give commentary on where my opinion is today. So here we go. Laura Knight grew up, like most of us, in a very Christian home. Again, she is my boyfriend's cousin. That family are big Methodist. My boyfriend, although I think when he was 12, that's when he told his parents he didn't want to go to church anymore. And he's 11 years older than me. So he's definitely from the Generation X. I'm a Zennial. I cuss. But nonetheless, when she first started channeling with the Cassiopaeans, which is kind of weird because she was still really indoctrinated into the Christian faith. However, she was doing all this channeling with other spiritual things. So it's kind of like that. And I think that happens a lot when we're starting to wake up and we're starting to become aware of other possibilities, is we kind of live in this weird, like, both worlds. I see that a lot when people like change political parties. You know, a lot of people who are Mr. T supporters now, but weren't for a while, they'd be like, well, I don't really like the guy as a person. I don't think but I like his policies. And it would take them a while to actually come around. So it's just, human psychology is very, very interesting. So even though Laura is sitting there doing all this stuff on the board, this very stuff that the church don't like you doing, she still, though, identifies heavily as a Christian. So it's very interesting. So she leaves a note here, kind of talking about where she was mentally when they did this particular reading. So she writes, it should be noted at this point, I was rather hung up on the idea that any communicant should be Christian and should support the Jesus story. So there is a lot of emotional investment going on here that could easily have skewed things significantly. In fact, based on ongoing research for the past 20 years, I would say that most of what is presented here as historical are my own preferences for how the story should be told in the merging of my religious beliefs of the time and what I was learning in my exploration of so-called alien reality. What this means, I think, is that there were elements of that were useful and semi-accurate, but was still a bit of a mishmash. So she's saying, like, you know, she's using the Bible as a historical reference. Makes me laugh because, in my opinion, Grimm's fairy tales are way more historically accurate than the Bible. The Bible is just so inaccurate. It's just make believe, basically, the Bible. There's nothing real. And they say that, right? Like in one reading where they say 70% propaganda of the Bible. So she's basing her historical facts on the indoctrinated story that she was taught in church. Yeah. And now she's kind of laughing at herself for that. Like, whoops. On the other hand, it was otherwise a very good session because when we moved to questions to which I had no particular attachment, the responses were remarkable. This was a session that introduced the idea of cometary bombardment as the reason for the cycle of catastrophes and the extinctions on Earth. Well, in a sense, I was someone attached to my own theories about this, and the seas were having none of it. So it is a definite example of when what I thought to be so conflicted with what the seas explained. This is also the first session with a mention of the wave. In general, you can see that I was all over the place and I was asking the questions rapidly and deliberately changing course to find out if I could catch the seas on their off foot, so to say. This was the first take session, which was a decision we made because there was no one present to take notes. So the wave series, that's her book. So basically talks about the wave that's coming into our world to like change us to fourth density. And I'll have a link to the first wave book down in the description box below. So I mean, she's right. She was trying to sway the conversation to have the Cassiopaeans, or the seas as she calls them, support the Jesus story because, you know, in third density thinking, I'm right, you're wrong, there has to be winners and losers, you know, there's no nuance here on our earth plane and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into it, which kind of leaves me to kind of some of the speculations that I make around what they're saying, because they don't like to infringe on our free will. They'll tell us the truth, but they also sometimes will be careful how they say that if they know the person is heavily indoctrinated. For example, you'll notice in this reading, they never tell her or correct her with the name. Like they never correct her with the name that his name was not Jesus. They never do that. But we know he wasn't. We know, actually, we do know that historically that there was no ever a person named Jesus that existed. The J sound just simply did not exist at that time. His name was Yeshua ben Yosef. So Yeshua with a Y, change that to J, that's Joshua. So anyway, but let's get into it. I want to talk more about that, about some things they leave out, some things they never said that I think there's kind of some conflicting stuff. But then when I looked back at my research and really considered what they were saying and then looked into some other things, I think in a lot of ways what they were doing was preserving Laura, giving her just enough to help her without like severely traumatizing her, giving her just enough to help her realize that she had been brainwashed, right? Okay. Hello, who are you? Pamthora. Are you the same individual who communicated with us last week? No. Are you from the same group? Yes. Why are you with us tonight instead of the one who was here last week? Frequency waves. The frequency waves are different. Close. Are you better able to communicate with us than the one who was here last week? Same. I don't understand what you mean about frequency waves. Could you elaborate? Too complex. Okay. Does this mean that you are not going to be able to communicate complex answers to us tonight? No difference. Last week, we were talking about Jesus of Nazareth, who became the Christ. Can we continue that subject this week? Yes. Now, again, remember, this is the indoctrination of the church, who became the Christ. Like there can only be one Christ. All of us have the ability to be in Christ consciousness. So again, if this is triggering you as a Christian, just don't watch, just turn it off, okay? The Christ consciousness, the Krishna consciousness is the Kundalini in the body, the rising to realization, okay? But she still is under that indoctrination that only one person could be this, which is a pecking order. which if you know the law of one, that's the dark side. The dark side has a packing order. You know, to have a religion where you have a chosen people, that's automatically a negative religion, because God doesn't have a chosen people. All living beings are chosen by God. Okay? Yes. Who was Jesus of Nazareth? Advanced spirit. Was Jesus born from immaculate conception? That is, did his mother not have sex with a man in order to conceive him? No. She did have schmex with a man in order to conceive him. Is that correct? Yes. Who was the man with whom she had schmex to conceive Jesus? Tonitha. That's her baby daddy right there, is Tonitha. Now, this actually cracked me up. The first time I read this, I did before, when I was like, I'm not going to do this on YouTube because it's going to piss people off. Then I was like, screw it. When have I ever been afraid to piss people off? It's the truth, right? My boyfriend and I were laughing about this because, well, we'll get into it. Who was this individual, Tonitha? Acquaintance. It was a one-night stand, you guys. And this is what gets me too, right? Like, you know, this is the contradiction that you get like from a lot of Christians, where they'll be like, they're so pro-life, right? Like, every life matters, it's all a miracle, blah, blah, blah. But then when you say, well, then obviously if Jesus was born like we're all born, then that's a miracle, right? No, he was immaculate conception, but you just said all life was a miracle. So you're double speaking here. You're contradicting yourself. You said all life is miracles. We're all miracles. The gift of a baby, even if the mother had a one-night stand and she got pregnant by mistake, and now you're going to stop her and tell her this life is special and it's a miracle. But then when you hear this is what happened to Jesus, all of a sudden it's not a miracle anymore, and that's gross, and how dare you, and he was immaculate conception. See the hypocrisy? To me, as somebody who just believes in God and does believe that every life is a miracle, regardless of whether Joseph was his daddy or this guy, Tonitha, was his daddy, doesn't matter to me. His life was still a miracle. That pregnancy was still, how he got here was a miracle. How we all get here is a miracle. So she was 19. Was Joseph upset to discover that Mary was pregnant? No. How old was Joseph when he married Mary? 39. Was Joseph unable to father children? Close. And I've just got here that this little mark to go to the wave, section 29. Again, you guys can get those books up. What date counting backwards in our calendaric system was Jesus born? 0106 minus 14.3. I don't know what this means. I've tried to figure out what this means. I have no idea. What time of day was he born? 6 a.m. Were there any unusual celestial events in the terms of star or planet algaments at that time? No. Now, this is fascinating. What was the star the Magi saw in the east that led them to the place where he was born? Was there an event where the Magi came to present gifts? Close. Who was it that came to present him gifts? 3 prophets. What country did these prophets come from? Iran, also known as Persia. Was Jesus an individual who had psychic or unusual powers from birth? Close. Did he have an awareness from the earliest time of his life that he was in some way special or chosen? Yes. Now, to say he was special or chosen as in different from other people, that is a negative polarity, but they're not going there. They're not going there with her yet. Okay? They're going to get into this later on. Yeah? You're not born special. Just by being born means that you're special. We're all equally born special. To become a teacher, which is what I see him as he was a teacher, a good teacher, it's through your own training, it's through your own awareness, but we're all born on an equal playing field, and our value as human beings is still equal. So even if somebody becomes a great teacher, a great master, and someone else doesn't, does not mean that their souls, that the teacher's soul is of any more value than the other person's soul. Does that make sense? Like, so, but this is the brainwashing of the church. So we're not getting those corrections from them yet. They do come in later transcripts because they're, again, slowly, as we read in the first reading, like slowly hinting at possibilities that what you know isn't true, but pulling back a little to let the person figure that out for themselves. He hasn't corrected the name, or this person, this Cassiopaean, has not corrected Jesus's name with her, has not corrected Mary and Joseph's name with her, nor have they corrected geography. So where did these prophets come from? Iran, known as Persia. But is Iran or Persia geographically where we think it is today? Because back in 1994, that would have been that would have probably shut down the sessions. They would have thought that this was not now we know our geography is wrong. Now we know that. 1994, we didn't. So they have to be very careful with how they play this, okay? What was the star that indicated to the prophets? A spaceship. So there is a asterisk here. As time went by, we learned that when the Cassiopaeans say close, we needed to pay attention to the specific terms and assumptions we were making. Kind of what I was just saying, right? Being close to unable to father children could easily mean that he was unable because of the choice or unable because of physical factors. It could even mean the word unable was only close. What kind of spaceship? Mother. Where did this spaceship come from? Other realms. Does that mean other realms as in dimensions or densities? Yes. Do you know of these other realms or densities as other star systems or planets? Partly. So remember, she's just now getting into the law of one. And law of one uses density, not dimension, which I prefer to use density to dimension as well. I think dimension gets way overused. And I think that sometimes dimension is used to manipulate people and fool people, but density, like we're in third density. There's no, I mean, this is a third density body. Can't manipulate that, right? I'm not levitating over here. I'm just like you. So that's why I choose to use density too. But you can tell Laura is having to kind of change her vocabulary a little bit to be more accurate. Now, this is what's interesting to me. Jesus grew up to the age of 12. Jesus grew up to the age of 12, at which point he was bar mitzvahed, correct? He was bar mitzvahed at the age of 10. So, now according to the missing books of the Bible, according to what the Essenes, Jesus was not Jewish. Now, this is too much, I think, for Laura at this point to truly comprehend that he was not Jewish. He was Egyptian. He had Jewish students, but he himself was Egyptian, which obviously it doesn't really effing matter. Like, it doesn't matter. But obviously the powers that be changed his ethnicity for a particular reason. I think that reason starts with an R and ends with a child, you know, to like brainwash us and make us the chosen people, you know, not just the regular ones around like us, but like this particular family, like that can now do no wrong because of the programming of this religion. But they don't correct her, but they say he was bar mitzvahed at the age of 10. So I looked into it, and there are coming of age ceremonies, and the priestess and priesthood of Isis, the Essenes, that boys and girls do at age 10 years old. So there's some for boys, kind of the same as the Jew, like becoming a man, becoming a woman. For a bar mitzvah, you know, little boys become men, girls become women. So there are some ceremonies that they do in the priesthood of Isis as well. And I think this is what they were getting at because it was at age 10, not 12. I thought, and let me know if there's anybody watching I thought it was 13 nowadays for bar mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. I could be wrong though. I'm a Gentile, so I'm as white as they come. So I thought it was 13 anyway. But they're saying 10, and then when I looked into it, I was like, okay, well, yeah. So I don't know. I would like to know your thoughts in the comment section below. It doesn't matter what his ethnicity was, beside the fact that I think they use the JEW particular religion to protect the R family. Sorry if you're new here, we can't use certain words on YouTube. ROTH, the Roth bankers, that family. The family that Emmanuel and Brigitte Macron are related to, according to Candace Owens' research. that family, that one. So, but when you're just a regular person who grew up in a church believing that he was the same religion as the banking family, to then learn that he wasn't, he was Egyptian, could really mess with your head, right? Where really it doesn't, again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all equally valuable. But I just thought that was interesting because, again, there were some ceremonies that they did with the priest and priestess of Isis, the Essenes, that's what the Essenes were, around the age of 10. So love to know your thoughts on that. Did he at that time receive training elsewhere? Aramaic Rite. Let's see here, number 6. Where is number 6? Oh, the wave. So you have to look at wave 29 to see the Aramaic Rite. Did Jesus, during his course of growing up years, travel to other countries and study under other masters? No. I thought that was interesting because we do have a lot of references to other teachings in the missing books of the Bible. But the thing, too, the more I thought about it, is that back in this time, oh, she put 7. She put, I think we can discount this response as wishful thinking on my part. At this time, though, a lot of these faiths, from what we know in this region, wherever this region was in the world, kind of had the same teachings, underlying teachings. All Eastern philosophy has the same underlying teachings. So any of the correlating teachings in the missing books of the Bible that correlate to teachings you see in Eastern philosophy could just be that was the prevailing school of thought at that time. So it appears to us, looking at this source material now, because things are so drastically different now, that he must have traveled to these places to learn these things, when in reality, this was probably the common teaching for most religions at this time, right? Like the soul and the chakra system. We know Yahshua talked a lot about the chakra system, going in, finding the inner peace within. The Gospel of Thomas Didymus, I'm paraphrasing one of the parables, they ask, where is heaven? And Jesus responds, well, if it's in the ocean, the fish will get there first. If it's in the sky, the birds will get there first. It's inside of you. It's inside of you. So where did he receive his teachings or training channeled to him? Did he at any point travel to India? No. Did he travel to Egypt to undergo initiation in the Great Pyramid? No. So she said, did he travel to Egypt and undergo an initiation in the Great Pyramid? No. But look at the question. Did he travel to Egypt to undergo an initiation in the Great Pyramid? So he never did an initiation in the Great Pyramid. That's what they asked, not whether he traveled to Egypt or was Egyptian. It was asked if he did an initiation in the Great Pyramid. So you have to be careful with the questions you have to ask the seeds, because they will answer the actual question. They're not going to go, well, he was Egyptian and he, lived in Egypt, but he just never did the initiation in the Great Pyramid. Right? Like, I'm from the United States of America, born and bred. I've never done any initiations at the Statue of Liberty in New York. So think about that. Like, if this was like 2,000 years from now and someone's like, did Bryce travel to New York, or did Bryce travel to America? Let's say the story had been changed and they said I lived in Canada or something. Did Bryce travel to America to do an initiation at the Statue of Liberty? No. They didn't ask, did I live in America? No. I never traveled. Does that make sense? So you have to be careful with the questions. He lived his entire life in Palestine, near in that general area. Bible is not entirely accurate. When Jesus attended that area, right? So that's Egypt too. Yeah, especially if we're looking at Egypt being in the southeastern United States. Yeah. So when Jesus attended the marriage at Cana, whose wedding was it? Did not happen. Did Jesus feed thousands of people with a few loaves and fishes? No. Well, actually, we know. So again, here's that question again. Y'all remember what the real food was? Bread and grapes. because we know from the missing books of the Bible he was a staunch vegetarian. He even said that you will never get to the highest level of enlightenment if you are eating meat. So did he feed thousands of people with a few loaves and some fishes? Well, no. What if they had said, did he feed thousands of people with a few loaves and grapes? Would the answer be different? Would it be yes? See what I'm saying? Are you saying that all the miracles of the Bible are myths? Remember, this is corrupted information altered after the fact for purposes of political and economic gain and control. That just sums it all up. So they're saying, remember, what you think is the truth is actually manipulated and altered for political and economic gain and control over you. So now we got to pull it back. Was Yahshua Jewish? Or was Yahshua Egyptian? That's the question that needs to be asked. Not was he bar mitzvahed, was he this, was he that? Are you saying all of his miracles are a myth? Well, just being alive is a miracle. Tell us what Jesus really did. He taught spiritual truths to those starving for them. He was a teacher. On what basis of these spiritual truths? Channeled information from higher sources. And what is the truth that Jesus taught? That all men are loved by the Creator and are one with the same. That's what I believe. That's what I spent the beginning of this episode saying. No one really knows what's going on in this world. And the people that say they know 100% what's going on are probably the most confused among us. No one knows for sure what anything. I have my beliefs on what's going on, but those are just my beliefs based on my studies. Third density is not the density of knowing. And when you can't know certain things, you have to have faith in things. My faith is that the higher power known as God, that we've named God as humanity, loves all of us equally and unconditionally. And that every single human being's life is a miracle. Did he perform miracles? Some. Can you tell us about one or two of them healing? Was he able to literally heal with the touch of his hands? Yes. Did he perform exorcisms? Close. Is Reiki the method he used to heal or something similar? Yes. Now, exorcisms, when they say close, what's the root word again of exorcism? Exorcise. The 7 demons. What are demons demonstrators? What are the 7 points of demonic? When they did that, that's the chakras. That's balancing the chakras. So helping people, you guys know, right? Like, it's not about pulling a demon out of someone. So we used Reiki. We know that. We've already known that. Is there a way to enhance the Reiki energy to make it powerful enough that one could do in a very short time what now takes quite a while? Yes. What can one do to enhance the Reiki energy? Attain lofty spiritual purity. I have 2 sets of Reiki symbols. Which set is correct or most powerful? The first or second set? The second set. Are these the original Reiki symbols given to Dr. Usui? Close. Are the Reiki symbols in possession of Caroline the correct symbols? I don't know who Caroline is. Again, she changes names. We talked about that last week or yesterday, last reading. Not necessary to know who Caroline is. No. Are the symbols that Anne is using correct? I don't know who Anne is. No. Is Anne able to transmit the initiation of a full and powerful way? No. Is she just wasting her time thinking she is doing the transmission as I suspected? She's wasting your time. Yours is what they're saying. Is there someone I could go to for the correct initiation? Yes. Do I know that person? No. Who do I know that may know that person? Helen. VG has strongest ability. So it's not necessarily that you know who these people are. Basically, the gist of this is that Dr. Usui obviously had the closest correct symbols from Reiki. Most of the Reiki practitioners I know are from Dr. Usui's lineage. And of course, Reiki would have, there's some Reiki symbols that would be corrupt. Why wouldn't there be? I mean, that's what the establishment, the Illuminati does. They corrupt everything. You know, seems to be, I mean, look at the yoga world. I've talked so much about the Vinyasa flow world is absolutely corrupt. Like, that is not real yoga. There's only 3 traditional yogas left. Ashtanga, Iyengar, Sivananda. That's it. And most people, though, only do Vinyasa flow and think they're doing yoga, and they're not. How many yoga teachers went through teacher training with the Yoga Alliance? The Yoga Alliance is 3-letter agency corruption. You want to teach yoga, you got to go live in India for years at a school in India and get authorized. And it's important, right? Because we want correct information. We don't want corruption. That's what this whole conversation is about, is that there's corruption everywhere. Speaking of correct information, I think this is a great time to take a little bit of a break so we can get a word from one of our sponsors. And of course, our sponsor for this episode today is the Esoteric Academy, an online mystery school built by my friend Paula and myself, where we bring you all of our years of training and education onto one platform globally, so that each and every person who wishes to participate in their own healing and taking their power back can. On this platform, we have a plethora of different courses that go over the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras, how to develop a personal spiritual practice, and coming soon, a whole course on the Law of One and, of course, the Cassiopaeans. What most people are missing or neglecting in modern day spirituality is the role of exercise. Exercise is foundational to spirituality for many, many reasons: to activate the chakras, to bring vitality, prana, evenly through the body, to move stuck energy, and most importantly, to be able to reflect on one's own shadow work. Shadow work is a psychological concept. It involves exploring the unconscious parts of ourselves that we tend to reject or hide, the shadow aspect of our personality. The goal of shadow work in spirituality is to bring awareness to these hidden parts, understand them, heal them, and then integrate them into our conscious self. This, of course, can lead to personal growth, increased self-acceptance, and healthy relationships with ourselves and others. This also brings an aspect of mindfulness, that we have to be in our body in this life, not outside of our body. And the only way to move forward in our consciousness and our soul's evolution is to actually drop down into ourselves and to heal the karma, or the work that needs to be balanced before we can progress further in our consciousness and in our soul's evolution. With this platform, I have taken the concept of traditional exercise, of activating all the chakras, all the vayus of the body, and I personally have incorporated them into more modern expressions of movement, because as I often tell my students, just because the work is hard does not mean it can't be fun. On top of that, Paula and I are bringing on other master teachers to also share their insight and experience with each and every student on the Esoteric Academy. My friend Cindy Ola of Sacred Garden Yoga, who is of the Iyengar and Anusara lineage, has just uploaded a 30-minute mobility class to our platform. With the Esoteric Academy, you also get live classes and live calls with both Paula and myself to personally try to help you understand your work for yourself in this journey. We also have an incredible community board with all the students all over the world being able to connect with each other and help support each other. The Esoteric Academy has 3 different tiers. We have a free tier which holds a lot of our YouTube videos that have been shadow banned or deemed unworthy by YT. We have a second tier that is only $25 a month that gives you access to every single exercise class and the lectures involved with the exercise class on what spiritual information we're looking for with each class. This tier also gives you access to the live exercise classes that we also do. The highest tier is the $40 a month tier, and this gives you access to everything. Access to all of the courses, the many courses that we have, access to all the meditations and the exercise classes and the live classes and the live calls. The $40 a month tier also gives you significant discounts to any continuing courses or workshops, intensives that are offered by outside sources such as Catherine Edwards' website, etc., etc. With the Esoteric Academy, we also give you 7 days of a free trial where you can sign up and have unlimited access to everything for 7 days to decide if this mystery school, this Shala, is right for you or not. If you decide it is not right for you, no problem. We can just cancel your membership. With that being said, we are also a small business, and we hope by being a small business that we can treat all of our students like family and really get to be able to help you guys as best as we can. With everything on this course, you are literally getting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of information, worth of workshops, worth of classes for only $25 to $40 a month. If you would like more information on the Esoteric Academy or to sign up for the Esoteric Academy, there is a link down in the description box below. Now let's get back to the show. All right. So we're back talking about Reiki. So she's saying, how do I know this person that can give me correct Reiki transmission? Helen, VG has strongest ability. Does that mean that Vanna has the strongest Reiki ability of us all? Yes, so these are just people. So she's asking the Cassiopaeans, again, like you find a good yoga teacher, a good authorized teacher who look at their resume, like, you know, if you're in the world and you don't want to join the academy, but you want a good yoga teacher, look at their resume. They went through a teacher training or anything like that. Probably not the best to go to that person, but they went and they studied in India, or they studied with a particular person through a particular lineage, then that is probably a better teacher because they've been taught properly. Yeah? Okay. Is her Reiki more powerful than my Reiki? Yes, Candy has no ability, crosses yours out. Now, this I thought was interesting. Candy has no ability. Are you saying that Candy has given me Reiki and it has canceled my own Reiki out? Precisely. So that is why you have to be careful with stuff, right? Like, if you go to a healer or you go to somebody who isn't, you could be negatively impacted by that. It could cancel out because that's what karma does. It's the equalizer. So if you have all this good knowledge and then you take bad knowledge, the bad knowledge is going to cheapen and nullify the good knowledge. That's just the way it works in a polarized planet. So you could be thinking, oh, I'm just being nice to this person and I'm just going to be okay. But no, it's canceling out your own stuff. That's why the powers that be like to corrupt spirituality and I think religion is just a corruption of spirituality anyway. But that's why the powers that be do that, because it dulls down what you already have. It cheapens your spiritual experience. That's why this conversation is so important. So you have to have so much discernment, we did 4 hypnosis sessions with Candy when she discussed abduction experiences and so forth. Was any of that information that she gave us embellished in any way? Yes. Was it embellished consciously or unconsciously? Both. Was she actually abducted by aliens? Yes. And what was the purpose of her abduction? What were the aliens trying to do with or to her? Vaginal probe. I have been told that it's happened to me before. I had to have healing done in that area. So I feel you, Candy. For what purpose? Reproductive efficiency. But Candy has had a hysterectomy. They found none. Was she abducted more than one time? Yes. How many times has she been abducted? 52. How many times has Frank been abducted? 53. Why have they been abducting Frank? Mind. What about his mind? Programmed by advanced powers. Did they abduct Candy 52 times just to do vaginal probes? No, that was the most recent. What were all the previous ones for? Study mind and tap emotions. In other words, they have tapped her emotions. Yes. Do they feed off of her emotions? Yes. Do they feed off of Frank's emotions? Yes. Is there any way to break that tap? It is not continuous. Do they tap my emotions? Yes. Is this for our benefit? No, because you're never abducted by good guys. Good guys don't abduct you. Bad guys do. Is it the bad guys who have been doing this? Yes. Is there any way we can disconnect these taps? Keep channeling and meditating. So you have to remove them. They didn't say go to some, healer who can zippity boppity boo zippity doo and take those taps away. No, you have to do it. You can go to a teacher and a healer to help you do it, but you have to be the one to do it. What does this channeling do to break the tap? Informs. Let's get back to Jesus. Are the only miracles he did healing? No. What other kinds of miracles did he do? Telekinesis. Did he walk on water? No. Did he turn water into wine? No. Are all of these just stories? Yes. What was the purpose of the stories? Control. Was Jesus crucified? No. Was somebody crucified? Too vague. We know this. We know this from missing books of the Bible. And I said it before. I've told this when I was doing my research and I was like, holy shit, he was never crucified. All of a sudden that made sense to me because that's not what a loving God does. That's what Lucifer does. To do a brutal unaliving, to adrenalize the blood, do a brutal unaliving, and then to communion. You guys know what that is. I was like, oh shit. Of course he wasn't, because the real God gives life. The real God doesn't take life, he gives life. And then I got on my channel, this channel, and I was like, guess what, you guys? Really good news. So many people were so upset about that. Like, these Christians want their blood. They are definitely, when I say Christianity is a form of Satanism, it is. It is a form of Satanism. And that proved it. When they were like, no, we have to do communion and we have to eat this person's body and just like vultures and like he has to be crucified. I'm like, Jesus Christ, literally, you sound like the people who used to go and hang out on that island that starts with an E. That's what you sound like. You sound no different from those millionaire and billionaires who get on that Lolita Express and go and do their wackadoo ceremonies where they would also unalive people in very brutal ways and then consume like vultures because they felt like they had a right to that. Like, you people feel like you have a right to the life force of another human being. Sick. That's when I realized that, oh yeah, no, we don't believe in the same God. I don't believe in the same God you believe in, obviously, because that's not okay with me to do that to another human being. And I'm relieved that that never happened, because that is more in line with the God that I believe in. God that I believe in does not want you to do, like, anyway. So, was somebody crucified? Too vague. Was somebody crucified on the cross and represented to be Jesus? No. There was no crucifixion. There was no resurrection after 3 days. Is that correct? Close. Okay, what is the truth on the matter? This is interesting. Left Earth plane on ship after extended sleep state. When did he go into his sleep state? Did he just go in one day and go to bed and go to sleep and then the ship came and picked him up? Close. So he appeared to his followers to have died. They thought this. So he went unconscious for like a few days. I think he was long over. Did he get up and say anything to anybody before he left on the ship? Yes. Did he come back to life? Yes. And then he told them things he had seen in his extended meditative sleep. Is that what had happened? Close. Okay, what happened? Told prophecies, then proclaimed eventual return. When we talk about the return, and they go through this later on, it's not him returning. It's not him returning. What's returning is the original understanding of the soul, the coming home of the soul, otherwise known as the Christ consciousness. Was this information he got during his period of extended sleep? Yes. How long was he asleep or in the state of semi-death? He was asleep. He was in a meditative sleep. He was not in semi-death. 96 hours. And then a ship arrived and took him away. Is that correct? Yes, upon a pillar of light. Are there any other miracles he did that are outstanding? Miracles are subjective. Did he raise Lazarus from the dead? No. No. Why would he do that? If you need to be risen from the dead in your body, then you have no belief in your soul. Because your body is just a container, just an outfit, just a Shakti, just an expression of life for this life. It's not forever. Did he raise anybody from the dead? No. Okay, when he got to the other plane, what did he do? Vague question. Are there any special power or advantages in praying in the name of Jesus? Yes. Well, if he didn't die and release his spirit into the earth plane, how is his power conferred? Prayers go to him. And what does he do when he hears prayers? Determines their necessity against background of individual soul development. You said that when a person prays to Jesus that he makes some sort of decision. Is that correct? Yes. And they clarify this later on. It's not actually Jesus. It's just the universe. It's spirit. It's God. It's your higher self. But again, at this point, Laura's not ready to hear that. Well, how can he do that when millions of people are praying to him simultaneously? Soul division. What do you mean by soul division? Self-explanatory. Do you mean soul division as in cellular mitose, where a cell splits and replicates itself? No. Does Jesus' soul divide? Yes. How many times does it divide? Endlessly is a projection of consciousness. And what happens to the piece of the soul that is divided or projected? It's not a piece of the soul. What is it? It's a replication. And each replication exactly identical to the original? Yes and no. In what way is the replicated soul different from the original? Not able to give individual attention. Are there any of us able to replicate this matter if we so desire? Could in same circumstances. The way the process works is thus. When Jesus left the earth plane, he went into another dimension or density of reality, whereupon all rules regarding the awareness of time and space are entirely different from the way they are perceived in your realm. At this point in space-time, his soul, which is still in physical realm, was placed in a state of something akin to suspended an animation and a sort of advanced form of unconsciousness. From that point to the present, his soul has been replicated from a state of this unconsciousness in order that all who call upon him or need him to be or speak to him can do so on an individual basis. His soul can be replicated ad infinitum as many times as needed. The replication process produces a state of hyper-consciousness in each way, and every version of the soul is conscious. Okay. So again, they go deeper into this in a further reading in the future. And I don't know exactly where, because my boyfriend and I have had many conversations about this. He's not a fan of the church either, and especially with everything. My research into the missing books in the Bible actually very much mirrors Laura's own research. So that in this book right here, it's a thick book right here, that she would go on to do this from this point forward. She would go on to do all this research into the Bible. And this book very much mirrors stuff that I found as well. So basically what they talk about later on is that so many people rely on this entity named Jesus with good intention that a replication of higher consciousness is created to assist them, almost like a guardian angel or like a spirit guide. But it's not necessarily the original person, if that makes sense. So later on, I think we've done that reading before. I can't remember. Let me know in the comment section if I read that myself or if I put it up on YouTube many years from now, when they talk about Yahshua and they're like, what's he up to? And the seas are like, it's none of your business what he's up to. He's doing his work in his density. Because the real person is not the entity that helps others. The entity that helps others for good is a particle of the higher consciousness of that person's higher self, its own guardian angels, its own guides, God, but manifesting as an entity that person in their density, in their stupidness, as third density goofy beings we are sometimes, would recognize as a help. right? So like, as Laura is here, is they're trying to be very careful with Laura, because to tell her the absolute 100% truth, no holds bar, would traumatize her. So to tell a Christian that the Jesus that they're praying to is actually a guide, a spirit consciousness of higher being of good that isn't actually Jesus, would traumatize them. So they have to see what they know and are comfortable with in order for there to be faith and trust. If that makes sense. Yeah. So my boyfriend and I talk about this a lot. For me, and probably for you, if you're still watching, I don't need it to be Yahshua. I don't need that. Like, I talked about my grandfather, though, my dad's dad, who's no longer with us, but he had a near-death experience when he was like 45, and he saw what he said was Jesus. And I've always questioned that. Like, what do you mean you saw Jesus? You know, like, what did he look like? Like the painting, that Cesare Borgia. You guys know, like, that Jesus painting is actually Cesare Borgia. So I'm like confused, because my granddad's like, I'm like, that's Cesare Borgia. But what it was a projection of what my grandfather would have been comfortable with, because he was a Christian. But if you're a Hindu and you have a near-death experience, it might be Hanuman you see. Whatever your third density consciousness is comfortable with and understands is what you see. Let me know if that's confusing. Maybe I can talk my boyfriend to come on and talk about this more. But otherwise, let's move on. Who is Jack the Ripper? Now, I've told you guys, I never wanted to cover Jack the Ripper. Because, as many of you know, my 5 times great grandmother is Queen Victoria, me and thousands of other people. Her grandson, who is my 3 times great grandfather, one of my 3 times great grandfather, his daughter, he sent his daughter to America, to Philadelphia, my great great grandmother, because of some scandal. Like, she was not wanted, we'll say, and there was some bargaining made. I'm not going to get into who my 3 times great grandfather was, because he's definitely well known. However, because I have multiple cousins, and that's not fair, you know, so I'm not going to say his name. But Jack the Ripper, the whole Jack the Ripper scandal happened around that time. And I always wanted to back off of that, because I felt like that was too close to home. Now, they say Dr. Bates. I looked up to see if I could find a Dr. Bates. There was a Dr. Bates in some like show made about Jack the Ripper, but as far as I could find historically, there was no mention of a Dr. Bates. However, there has been mentions of a doctor that worked for the royal family, and that was always my assumption. But reading this actually made me feel better, because I, for a long time, have carried that guilt that the Jack the Ripper situation happened because of something my great 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 grandfather did, not meaning he was trying to protect his daughter, but there had to be kind of a distraction as to what was happening. Anyway, I've carried that guilt, but this actually made me feel better. Maybe I shouldn't be carrying this guilt. So did he commit unaliving on himself? Is that why the Ripper unaliving stopped? No. Did he just stop doing it? Yes. Why did he do it? Experiment in human organs. He was a mad surgeon. Was Adolf Hitler possessed by demons or evil spirits? Close. Was Adolf Hitler under the control of negative-oriented aliens? Close. Where is Adolf Hitler now? Sleeping. How long will he sleep? Indefinite. Will Adolf Hitler return to incarnation at some point in the future? Yes. Can you predict what kind of life he will lead in his future incarnation? No. The passage attributes to Jesus in Matthew 24 and Luke 21, where Jesus predicts the end of the age and his return, is that a fairly accurate rendering? Close. Is Jesus, in fact, in a state of suspension voluntarily, another plane of existence, having chosen to give up his life on this planet in order to continuously generate replications of his soul patterns for other people to call upon his assistance? Yes. If one calls upon him more than once, does one get a double dose? Define. If one repeatedly calls upon Jesus, does one get repeated replications or additional strength, power, whatever? No. In other words, once one has truly made the connection, that's it. That's all that is needed. Has any other soul volunteered to perform this work? Yes. How many souls are doing this work at the present time? 12. Can you name any others? Now, this bothers me, this one. but it could be for the negative, right? Like, because we know, and even for the Cassoppaeans, they talk about he went negative. That he started off good, but went negative. By the time he was doing all the shenanigans we see in the Bible, that was all black magic. So it could be that he is in a higher density, but on the dark side. She didn't specify which side, right? Okay. What year did the Exodus occur, counting backwards from now, according to our calendar system? I hate when they ask these questions sometimes, because the calendar system now and the calendar system then was different. So you get these weird decimal points, you know? At what time did a cometary Venus pass close to the Earth and cause disruption? At that time, did basically a comet through Venus pass? Yeah, so there was some star stuff going on. Okay. Was Venus born from the planet Jupiter? No. Did it appear in the sky from the area of Jupiter? Yes. Was the Earth knocked into a new orbit position because of this activity? Yes. Is an event of this time going to take place in the not too distant future? Maybe. Did an event from this type take place at the time of the flood of Noah? Yes. How many years ago did the flood of Noah occur? There you guys go. Was Noah an actual historical person? Close. Was Noah the same person described in the Babylonian or Sumerian text? Close. Which is the older civilization, Sumerian or Egyptian? Sumerian. Now this is interesting. Who were Enlil, Enki, the Anunnaki or Sumerians of the Anunnaki the Anunnaki of the Sumerian stories? Great teachers. Were they human or extraterrestrial? Extraterrestrial. Where did they come from? Cassiopeia. You guys, we have been told that these people were bad. They weren't. I don't know why that shocks me. It shouldn't shock me at this point. It really should not shock me by this point. Everything is flipped. Every fucking thing is flipped. Was the human race genetically designed to be slaves? Yes. Who were the genetic engineers of the slavehood? The lizard beings. It was not Enlil and Enki. I'm sorry, I'm getting tie twisted. It's Mercury retrograde. It was not Enlil and Enki who, they were not even Anunnaki. They were Cassiopaean. They were not Anunnaki. And they were teachers. They were not here to enslave us, to grab the gold, to take the gold back. That was the lizards. It's so obvious now. Why is this shocking to me? Why is this shocking to me? Why is this shocking to me? I should have known this, because it's all fucking flipped. It's all flipped. Where do they come from? Earth or another planet? Other. What other planet? However the hell you say that. What star system is that in? Zeta Reticuli? Are the little gray beings from there as well? Yes. Are the little gray beings cybergenetic? So they are created by the grays, or by the lizards, sorry. So the little gray beings, I covered a story about the little gray beings that happened in Kentucky. Now my mind's gone blank about the name of the town in Kentucky, but it's over on Gnostic TV. So if you go into the description box, there's a link to Gnostic TV, the Esoteric Explorer. You can watch the stuff there. It's for free. But I covered these sightings in Kentucky where there's a tons of like little gray men sightings. They are cybergenetic. They are like not real. They're not like, you know, sentient, like created from the way we're all created. They were created by the lizards. Do they have souls? They are decoys. Are the Lizzies currently with us? Near. Are the Lizzies planning on taking over our planet? Yes. Are they planning on landing and doing this openly? Close. Do they utilize such things as possession by dark energies, forms to affect their control? Yes. What are other groups are they in cahoots with? The Orions. How many members are there in the Orion Lizzie group? 16. I think that means 16 different groups, not entities, like bigger groups. Who are the good guys? You say the Cassoppaeans are the good guys. Who else? Palladians and many more. How many? 16.26. Are the sides equally balanced? Yes. Do the good guys abduct people? No. They may contact and voluntarily transport, but they do not abduct. That's only bad guys. So if you think you've been abducted for the good, you haven't. You haven't. Who really killed Abraham Lincoln? Booth. Conspiracy. Who was the head of this conspiracy? Booth, but was not caught, was Patsy Stand-In. Oh, I don't know why I didn't notice this the first time. So the real Booth wasn't caught. Y'all, the real, has anybody covered this? Other researchers? Let me know in the comment section below, because if other researchers have covered this and realized the real Booth wasn't caught, that it was a stand-in, it was a fall guy, will you send me the video? Because I want to see it, because that makes sense, because the bad guys, they like never take the blame. They always put the fall guy in, right? There's always a scapegoat. Was the story of Noah's flood story the breaking up of Atlantis? Yes, but symbolic. How many people were on the planet at this time? 6 billion. Out of the 6 billion people, how many survived? 119 million. So Christians, it wasn't just the family. There were, and the Emerald Tablets talk about this too. There were plenty of people who survived. We're not all products of incest, right? Like, was Noah's flood caused by the closing passage of another celestial body? Yes. Which body was that? Martek. Do we know this body in our solar system now? What's its name? Mars. Was Martek inhabited planet at that time? No. Did it have water or other features? Yes. When it passed close to the Earth, did it in fact overload our planet with water that we did not have prior to that time? Yes. You guys, we talked about this. There are so many roads under oceans that people are finding. So we got a bunch of the water from Mars when the flood story had, the deluge had, that we see in multiple cultures. Did we, prior to that time, have a water vapor canopy surrounding our planet? Yes. Was this time of the major dying of the large dinosaurs? Close. What event transpired to kill off most of the dinosaurs? Beast. They don't teach this shit in science class, do they? What kind of beast? Mastodon, saber-toothed tiger, a giant sloth. I want to see a giant sloth. Like, I would rather, I mean, we've seen the mastodons and the saber-toothed tiger. We know what but a giant sloth seems kind of fun. Was it a cosmic event that brought about the death of some of the largest dinosaurs? Yes. It did not happen at the time of Noah. Is that correct? Yes. Did it happen before the flood of Noah? Yes. How many thousands of years counting backwards? 27 million years ago. What event took place that caused the death of the dinosaurs? Comet impact. Did a comet actually strike the Earth? Yes. Was it a large comet? Yes. How large? 18 miles in diameter. Is there any regular periodic or cycle to this comet business? Yes. What is this period? 36,000 years roughly. Was Velik Kavasi correct when he said Venus was on a 52-year orbit during certain periods of history? Close. Now, I do want to talk about this person eventually. Let me know. I mean, I've been wanting to talk. We talk about him a lot. My boyfriend and I do. We talk about his theories a lot, but I have never really brought this to my channel. Let me know if you want me to. How many passes did Venus make through the solar system before it was precipitated into a regular planetary orbit? 7. Where did Venus originally come from? 19 light years away. So it was actually an extra solar system visitor. Yes. Is it true that at regular intervals, the sun radiates massive amounts of electromagnetic energy, which can then cause the planets of the solar system to interact with one another to a greater or lesser extent? Other irregular pulsations determined by external vibratory events. The sun is not the source of the periodicity of dyings. Is that correct? Sometimes, many causes. Well, what is the cause that reoccurs like clockwork? Is there some cause that is a regular pulsation? Cometary showers. So these different timeline shifts are caused by comets shifting, not the sun, I think is what they're saying. Where are these cometary showers from? Clusters in own orbit, so it's in our own orbit. It's our own, like no one's fault but ours, right? We got to clean our own backyard up first. Where is the orbit of these clusters? Is the Oort cloud? Is that the Oort cloud? No. Where is the orbit of clusters of comets located? More specific, a specific orbit containing clusters of comets. Yes. Does this cluster of comets orbit around the sun? Yes. Is that orbit perpendicular to the plane of the ecliptic? Yes and no. Does this cluster come into the plane of the ecliptic and cause havoc in the solar system? Exactly. How often does this cluster of comets come into the plane of the ecliptic? 3,600 years. Is this cluster of comets to remain the remains of a planet? No. Is the cluster of fragments in between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter the remains of a planet? Yes. That's interesting. So we do see remains of other planets, the debris of other planets, because we do hear stories from the Cassiopaeans and other sources of all, like the Cassoppaeans, like all these, like if you're predominantly like blonde hair and blue eyed like me, you got a lot of Cassoppaean planetary, like Celtic, Druid. That's all like Cassoppaean. That was a planet, Kenteca. And then the people were brought here when that planet imploded. And that's where blue-eyed, blonde-haired people come from. That's the lineage. So that's interesting that they're saying you can see some of the remains that they call comet clusters of these planets. Like the evidence is there, but science will tell you that this is all conspiracy or folklore. It's not real. We evolved from monkeys, right? Right? But then there actually are comet clusters that are in our own orbit that are not the remains of another planet. So, oh, here we go. They're talking about it. So what was the planet known as? Kentek, or yeah, I think I said Kentucky, and Kentek, though, is the planet. That's exactly what I was just talking about. It's wild. When did that planet break apart into the asteroid belt? 79,000 years ago, approximately. What body were the Sumerians talking about when they described the planet of the crossing of Nibiru? Comets. This body of comets, yes. Does this cluster of comets appear to be a single body? Yes. Is this the same object that is rumored to be on its way here at the present time? Yes. Who were the Anunnaki? Aliens. Where were they from? Zeta Reticuli. I'm probably butchering that, but there you go. That's where they're from. Do they come here every time the comet cluster is approaching to sap the soul's energy created by the fear, chaos, and so forth? Yes. Yes, because the dark side can only live off of the light. It can't create for itself. It can only, the light's the only thing that can create. The darkness has to take from the light. The two events are loosely interrelated. Yes. Is that why they are here now? Close. Is there a large fleet of spaceships riding a wave, so to speak, approaching our planet? Yes. Where are these ships from? Same place. When will they arrive? 1 month to 18 years and to more years. They constantly go back and change this, guys. They change it because, again, they can't give an actual date because of so many mitigating factors. There's so many variants upon that. No one can give you a date or a time because it depends on every human being's collective conscious. How can there be such a vast discrepancy in time? This is a huge fleet that space-time warping is irregular and difficult to determine as you measure time. That too. We also do time differently than them. Are these crafts riding a wave of some sort? Yes. How many planets are in our solar system? 12. Can you tell us the name of all the planets, their distances from the sun, the chemical composition, and the diameter? So there you go, guys. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and then these. And 1 and 2 and 3. End of session. All right, you guys, that was a bit of a long one. But that was juicy, no? Like, I think that's kind of juicy. Like that leads to more questions for me. And I can't wait to go even deeper into this with you guys. We got a few more from 1994 I want to do, and then we're gonna mosey on into 1995. So I'm loving these older readings because the people on the board are like WTF half the time, and now looking back we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? So it just shows you like how much the Cassiopaeans knew that is now come into fruition. So please let me know. I want to know all your juicy thoughts and your juicy opinions. How do you feel about Mary having a friend that was the father of Yahshua? It makes sense to me because we know the soul of a person, when the soul decides it needs certain characteristics in DNA to do its karma, basically, it has to get that from two people. And so if that guy, Tonitha, had the DNA that Yahshua needed and Mary had the DNA, then of course they were going to have to like bump it one night in order to merge the DNA. So anyway, it's all a miracle. Life of all form is a miracle. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful day. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll see y'all soon. Bye, everybody.
Let me show